Your identity is being stolen right now. Here's how to stop it. Discover how in today's episode with Wes Kussmaul. And he's the CEO of the Authenticity Institute, and he launched the world's first online encyclopedia. So, Wes, please tell us, how can entrepreneurs avoid that their identity gets stolen right now?
AI Superwoman podcast with Patrascu shares the world's most innovative AI tools and processes to go from technophobe to AI pro, attract leads, close sales, automate your business, enhance productivity, and deploy AI agents to do your work.
Well, it's stolen by what's commonly called the surveillance capitalist industry. We've coined a name for it, Syllabandia, which stands for Silicon Valley, plus the broadband and media industries, plus their feeders, and the feeders are very important. And what people think is being captured are their buying habits, so that advertisers have an idea who is most likely to buy their product for what price, et cetera. But it's so much more than that. It's so much more devious and insidious than that. It's really all about your relationships, your beliefs, your alliances, and what you can be made to believe, and what echo chambers you might be induced to join, because those echo chambers are where they make the most money. They sell ridiculously overpriced products, and they sell you ideologies and beliefs as well. So that's really what's at risk. It's really your whole digital self. If you ask for a report on what they know about you and manage to get it, it's likely to run 800 pages long.
Thank you. So how real is the threat to our identity?
Well, it's absolutely omnipresent. Your identity is being identity information, and stolen identity takes two forms. There's the usual, okay, someone captures your password and manages to authenticate to a bank account or something like that, and that's one form of stolen identity, and certainly there's been enough in the news about that. But then there's the stolen identity, meaning the stolen you. Everything that is known about you, everything you have just revealed about yourself in your memberships, in your conversations, in your likes and your comments, is accumulated and used as an object of total manipulation. So that's the one we all should be much more concerned about. There's a new kind of bot. You're familiar with botnets and troll farms, bot farms, and that sort of thing. Well, these are synthetic human beings, synthetic people. The best description of this phenomenon is by a former worker in that field. Her name is Sutton Smith. She's left that field and is now an actress on a streaming TV show. But previously, she was hired to create dozens and dozens of synthetic people who don't really exist, and given audiences of millions to propagate ideas and beliefs in such a way that they come from the unexpected, and they come from unexpected corners, and so people tend to believe that which seems to just appear organically from their normal world rather than from some advertiser. And that's the whole business of bot farms and troll farms. So she goes by the name on Instagram as Sutton Loves. Sutton, Loves, but her real name is Sutton Smith. So by all means, look her up. And look specifically for that video where she describes how these bot farms work. There's not a lot of people talking about them, and in fact, the whole methodology was, well, it goes back a long ways. I call it Goebbelsology, after the infamous propagandist of the Nazi era, Joseph Goebbels, but it's been refined and since then to use, they didn't even have television at their disposal then, but now with mass media and particularly social media, it's quite an insidious thing. And the latest refinement of it was developed by none other than Evgeny Prigozhin, the Leningrad, or excuse me, St. Petersburg operator of Internet Research Bureau is the name of one of them, used to manipulate people's perceptions. He's also, of course, the head of the Wagner Group, a private army in Russia, and the person who tried to attack the Putin regime and lost his life as a result. But his real expertise, well, he had many expertises, but this one is the use of social media to manipulate perceptions. It's really considerable. It's really something we all should be paying much more attention to.
Thank you. Tell us some of the top ways that entrepreneurs need to protect themselves from the threat to their identity, and what specifically can they do about it?
Well, we advocate. I used to be on radio shows all the time, and inevitably I would be asked, what can I do to make my computer safe? And my answer would be, what antivirus software can I use? And I had a very unsatisfactory answer to that in those days, and that was, there's nothing that you can install on your computer to make it safe. Now, update that to today's situation. The one step that can be taken right away is to only be in online environments where identities are measurably reliable. Out there on the web, the internet used to be called the information highway, and the characterization still fits. What is a highway? But an outdoor public transport system. Emphasize the word outdoors. What would you expect in the way of security if you lived and worked and had your meetings and let your kids hang out by the side of a highway, right? I mean, what would you expect? You live in a cardboard box by the side of the roadway. How would your life be? And what would you do if you were in that situation? How do we use highways? Well, typically in the physical world, we use highways to go from one building to another, from one indoor space to another, one space of accountability to another. Because what is a building but a set of accountability spaces, right? You tend to know who's in the room with you. You mentioned that I created the world's first encyclopedia. That was 1981. I've been at this for a while. I know I look like I'm 39, but believe it or not, I'm older than that. And there was a time when social media provided accountable anonymity. In effect, indoor spaces. You were indoors. You were effectively in a building, because what is a building but a set of accountability spaces? Then along came the web, and accountability was thrown out the window. Now there's this great exuberance about information was meant to be free, the freedom, and I compare it directly to the freedom of being outdoors. The outdoors is a wonderful place characterized by freedom. You can go anywhere while you're outdoors. You can't go anywhere when you're in a building. You can only go where you're supposed to be in a building. But the thing is that in those days when the web was new, the freedom, the desire for freedom and to escape what was perceived as the way information technology worked was so liberating that people forgot the whole concept of accountability, which had been available in social media before then. So what we're doing at the Authenticity Institute is building buildings, building indoor spaces where there is accountability. And this is a long-winded answer to your question, I realize, but it's not there's no simple answer to that question that you asked. The answer is find spaces of accountability, find spaces where people are measurably, reliably identified. And I hasten to add that that does not mean spaces where everyone is trackable. Now, if you think about it, there's been a solution to the need for accountable anonymity for over 100 years. You think about it, your car's number plate, license plate, makes you accountable on what? Outdoor public roadways, right? And yet no one gets to know the identity of the driver or owner unless there's been an incident, you've had a fender bender, or the police think that you're carrying drugs or whatever. You're somehow breaking the law in your use of your car, in which case there's a right and a need to know your identity. And that can be revealed. And to do that, of course, you need the services of a central authority. And that's one thing that the whole decentralization movement tries to discredit the need for authority. And it's true, authority has to be built, designed well. But if you think about it, all of these quote unquote decentralized systems, all these systems that supposedly have no central authority, that's not true at all. Even Bitcoin is the most decentralized system out there. And yet it's governed by a very small group. I think there are 5 people left in it, called Bitcoin Core, which is a central authority that manages all of the algorithms that run this amazing thing called Bitcoin. So governance is needed. Lawrence Lundy Bryan himself is a decentralization advocate, but he's the one who's known for saying there is no such thing as decentralized governance. You need an authority so that Lily trusts Wes's identity claim and Wes trusts Lily's identity claim, right? There needs to be this means of knowing that the other person's identity claim has some basis to it. Otherwise, there's no such thing as accountability, and in which case there's no such thing as security. And actually, ironically, there's no such thing as privacy. So real security, real privacy, real accountability. Those are the things that entrepreneurs, I don't know how to differentiate the needs of an entrepreneur from day to day from that of just anyone. We all need real security, real privacy, real accountability. But I will say this, entrepreneurs who look to build spaces of real security, real privacy, real accountability should talk to me.
Thank you. Tell us how exactly this works. So let's say I have a company that does, property investments. How can I use your authenticity company in order to protect and secure my business from cybersecurity threats?
Here's how. Okay, you are a property owner or you're a developer and you have some office buildings you want to sell.
Okay.
Now, remarkably, there are online auctions for commercial properties. Anyone can bid on them. What happens if you have an $80 million office building, you contract with an online auction site, and you sell the building, and it turns out the bidder is a fake person, which happens. It happens all the time. Now it takes a month or a month and a half to sort that out. You've lost credibility. You've lost the cost of that maintaining that property, the cost of the complexity, the legal costs. Wouldn't you prefer to know that that bidder has a bond behind an identity, and the identity is represented by a digital identity certificate, a PKI digital certificate? We have all been kept from knowledge of PKI, but we all need to know how PKI works. The foundation of PKI is, I mentioned PKI identity certificate. This is not biometrics. This is not two-factor, multi-factor authentication. Built on something called asymmetric cryptography. We're using that right now in this meeting, this online meeting. Every time you go to a website that starts with HTTPS, you use this fundamental technology. Blockchain and Bitcoin are built on asymmetric cryptography. In asymmetric cryptography, one end of a communication has two very large mathematically related numbers. So if you want to authenticate, one of those numbers is called a private number and the other is called a public number. They're called keys in the way it's, PKI stands for public key infrastructure, and nobody understands what a key is, and I don't know why they call it that. It should call it a number because it's a number. You assert your identity with the public big number, and these are very big numbers. You send that number to the server. The server makes a puzzle out of that big number and sends the puzzle back to you. You have the private big number in your phone or laptop or tablet or whatever, and you're able to solve that puzzle and send the solution to the puzzle back to the server. The server says, okay, you claimed to be Lily before. Now I actually believe that you're Lily because you were able to solve that puzzle. And that means that I know that you have the private big number in your possession. Notice that private big number never leaves your device. It's always secret. Typically, you don't even know your own private number. And it's too long to remember anyway. Other important thing is that if a hacker captures every bit going back and forth between your device and the server, they'll capture nothing of value. The big number, the puzzle, the solution to the puzzle, that's because every puzzle made with that public big number is different. Now, the reverse of that, you use the reverse of that process for digitally signing something. Now, you probably used DocuSign or similar quote unquote electronic signature systems. They use the same technology, but they don't bother with the enrollment process because that's costly, right? Knowing that you are who you claim to be is you got to spend some money to establish that. Just do it once, and that's, rather than every single time you have a permanent credential then once you've been enrolled. A digital signature is different from an electronic signature, not in the technology used, but in the fact that you've been enrolled and the private big number is in your control. It's not on a server. An electronic signature company basically rents you an identity for the duration of the signing, and then an hour later use the same identity for another signer, meaning what? It means nothing, right? I mean, if anybody can, if an identity is reused for multiple people, what good is it, But anyway, so in the case of signing, you reverse the the logging in process. You make a puzzle using your private big number. Then anyone who has your public big number can solve the puzzle, knowing that now it's not secret, right? You send the file, the document or video or image or anything. Anyone can say, okay, I see that came from Lily, but what they can now know is that it really was you that created that document, that signed that document. And the third thing that this does, and I know this is, again, a long-winded answer to your question, but this is a different world, okay? The third thing is control of decryption keys. And here it gets difficult to explain because it uses a different kind of encryption. One where the number used to encrypt is the same as the number used to decrypt. And you say, well, why wouldn't you just use those two big numbers? Well, the thing is that the asymmetric system is only good for very small files. So what you do is you encrypt the key, the big number that both encrypts and decrypts. You encrypt that, and then you share the encrypted symmetric key, the one that's the same for both sides, and then you know that you're sending it to the right person that you want to have access to it, so that only that person can read that decrypted file. I often tell myself I should not bother with that third thing that you use this for because it's so, the explanation is necessarily complicated. But those are the three things you do with this with PKI: logging in very securely, digital signing, and control of decryption keys.
Thank you. What's the difference between that and then, let's say, if the hacker was to get access to your phone or your email or both, they would still get access to these codes, right?
If your private big number is readily available to anybody who has your phone, then you're right. That's why it should be protected with a biometric, a facial image or a fingerprint. So if they steal your phone, they get your phone, you lose your phone, it's still protected by a biometric, or you can use a PIN, and that's how you prevent that.
Thank you. So let's say in this case of the fake person potentially buying a building, if you have a property investment business, how would this technique actually help you? Because wouldn't you still send the potential code to the person who is interested? Let's say Pedro is interested in buying a building, and I don't know why he would fake apply to buy it, but let's say they did. Like, why would they even do it? I'm not sure I really even understand how.
Well, for a number of reasons, I'm sure, and I not being in the fraudulent building buying business, but one reason you might do it is if trying to do business in the same town, selling a commercial property, and you want to disrupt the business of your competitor. That's one easy way to do it. Or there are just some malicious people out there who just do it for sport. I suppose you could also hold up a transaction and ask for payment to step aside. But so when we measure the reliability of an identity, we measure 8 metrics, 8 measures, 8 forms of evidence of identity. Each is scored on a scale of 0 to 9. So you have an aggregate score, add them up, and you've got a 0 to 72. The 7th of those scores is the degree of assumption of liability. What does that mean? That means, is this identity claim protected by a bond? If it is used fraudulently, the relying party gets to collect on that bond. In other words, I've been defrauded by this fake identity, but this fake identity is represented by a bond. Well, obviously, no bonding company is going to issue a bond unless they've been convinced that you're really Lily, So it's a little like boiler insurance. You don't buy it for the insurance as much as you buy it for the inspection to make sure that your boiler's not going to explode. The same here. I'm buying a bond for my identity so that you, the relying party, know that I really am who I claim to be. Because the bonding company would obviously have checked me out, or they wouldn't have issued the bond.
Thank you. Like I've been getting like codes from the government gateway, which in the UK is like a way for you to access a place where you can like pay your taxes and claim, I know, tax benefits and this kind of thing. And I haven't accessed the actual government gateway, right? So over the last few days, I keep receiving these codes. So I keep wondering, is there a possibility someone is trying to like access that? And if yes, like, why are they sending the codes to my phone? Because does that mean that they actually have already like access to my phone? Because they wouldn't be able to actually get the code without it, right? So are there any tools to prevent your identity being stolen through your phone? Like, and what kind of apps do they use to actually access that?
I have no idea, but it sounds fishy to me. No, Lily, I'm sorry for not being forthcoming with practical things that people can do today to keep themselves safe. But the reason I am not forthcoming is because I don't believe there are available solutions that an individual can take just to make themselves safe in today's world without joining an environment. We have a few of them. One is called Authentiverse. If you go to authentiverse.net, we will take you on a flight to a continent, where a digital continent, where things work this way. And basically, to be on this continent, you need to have this pair of numbers that identifies you. You have to have been enrolled. And you're therefore making yourself accountable. You're not making yourself knowable, but you're making yourself accountable. Again, the license plate, you can assert your identity without disclosing your identity. Always keep that license plate, number plate, your car's license plate in mind, because it explains so much of the whole thing.
Thank you. Tell us some possible use cases for the authenticity platform that you built. Like what for this signature thing that you described, what possible use cases are there for this?
Okay, so thank you for that question. It's an excellent question, and since we are a licensing firm and we provide the platform to entrepreneurs who license it to solve problems of inauthenticity in their particular audience or market, I will, without the blessing of our licensee, and I'll probably hear about this, but describe one that is about to be launched. It's called Trusted and True. It's a dating network. Now, you've probably been reading about all of the problems of fraud in dating networks. It is rampant, and it's incredible the amounts of money that people have been losing to these schemes. On Trusted and True, you have the benefit of knowing that everyone you encounter there is a real person, whether or not they're disclosing their name, their identity. They are a real person, and they are accountable for everything they say and do. So there are no synthetic identities in there. You may use a pseudonym. You may represent yourself in any way you want, but if something happens and somebody else gets a court order saying this person defrauded me or they told the story of an investment story or how their grandmother needed an operation, blah, 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 the usual stuff, you have recourse. And so why would a fraudster even bother participating in Trusted and True when there are so many dating networks out there where they can apply their scams without interference? So that's an example of one. We have another one that is being another entrepreneur, another of our licensees is going to serve the music community. We have one who's going to serve the equestrian community, people who have horses, who are, by the way, a big another target of scammers because they tend to have money. So when you participate in Equestrian Village, we have the trademark on the word village, by the way, for an online community, registered trademark. When you participate in Equestrian Village, you have the comfort of knowing that, the person who's selling you a bridle or or wants to board a horse, or you want to board whatever horsey people do. I don't have horses. That everyone there is real and accountable. So there are 3 examples.
Thank you. So the idea is that you can integrate this in many different industries. And the whole idea is to create as many authenticated universes as possible within which the community can be trusted, because there is recourse in case they.
One other important point is that credential that you get through enrollment for Trusted and True, you can use in Equestrian Village, you can use in Music Village. It is one credential. We call it a certificate stack, and I won't go into why we call it that. But it's multiple identity certificates, a cluster of identity certificates, and that allows you to identify yourself, to make yourself accountable. Because if you think about it, everyone wants privacy for themselves and everyone wants accountability from others that they encounter online. So in order to get accountability from others, you need to make yourself accountable to that community. Fair enough. But once you do enroll and have this identity certificate cluster with a certain identity reliability score, you can use it anywhere. I mean, now the person running that village or building or whatever still has to say, yes, Lily belongs in here. Yes, we believe that Lily has a horse and so belongs in Equestrian Village. But that same credential is used everywhere throughout. I say Authentiverse, but there are it can be used. Businesses can be built. Authenticity-enabled businesses can be built outside of Authentiverse.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can find you and your authentication services.
Come to watch the videos and sign up for a mail list. Authentiverse.net.
Thank you.
Follow me for more AI productivity tools.